So welcome to How Far is Too Far with Sonya Tiwari. She's going to talk about parasocial AI, which has come up a few times. And ever since, you were the original person that inspired me that there needs to be this conference. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what you have to tell us, Sonya.
All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Sonya Tiwari. I'm a children's media researcher, and today we'll see the scale of child AI interactions because usually we just say broadly that AI can be dangerous for kids or AI can be useful for kids, but there's no way to measure or assess as of now how different factors around children's AI products actually impact children's learning experiences. So hopefully this framework, this tool will help EdTech product designers, researchers, and other learning designers to design more ethically. So a working definition of AI characters are just any digital or tangible or even hybrid fictional personality that engages users through partial or complete interaction powered by AI. And these characters they appear alive like in appearance or behavior. So this is a very broad catch-all kind of definition. I refrain from the term AI companions because that implies that all AI products or AI characters with some kind of personality are aimed at companionship, which is not the case, as we'll see in the examples of this presentation. So broadly, I study sort of more positive use cases of AI characters, such as smart speakers, social robots, tutors, and hybrids. And these are different than the character AI or replica type of chatbots that are designed for adults, designed for companionship and more intimate relationships. These characters that I study are more purpose driven, but of course, even within products that are designed with good intention, there can be challenges in terms of how they're perceived by kids. So even if these tools are not designed for addiction, there's a chance that kids might get addicted. In smart speakers, we have Amazon Echo Dot, Clova Friends. Sometimes it's just a smart speaker with a cute packaging. In function, in essence, a lot of these platforms are similar. Amazon Echo Dot Kids is particularly nice because it has a developer platform, and many organizations such as Toybot and Readyland, they kind of add their content to the smart speaker platform. Other, like the Apple Home and Clova Friends and many other smart speakers, don't have the same level of creativity and resources given to creators to design custom learning experiences. And social robots, we have Miko, Luna, Eilic. I used to share about Moxie a lot before that product was shut down, that social robot. Tutors is probably my favorite category with Conmigo, Buddy, Elo kind of tutor chatbots because they're very purpose driven. The interaction is usually time limited, and there's very little, almost no report of addictive behaviors with tutoring chatbots because they're so purpose driven. And then there are hybrid products that kind of combine the tangible and digital aspects. For example, in Readyland, you can read a book and you can simultaneously talk to the smart speaker about the book. You can ask it to read the book to you. You can ask a follow-up question about the story and things like that. So here's the big framework. I know it looks complex, but it's basically 4 branches coming out of AI characters for kids, and it's a way to assess the impact of interaction with AI characters on children's learning experiences. So first, we talk about the actual scale, like how much interaction is needed. Do we need just simple information retrieval, such as how is the weather, or what's the capital of a certain country, what's the fastest animal? So just asked and answer type of questions. Do we need some kind of light parasocial interaction? So for example, in the tutors that I just discussed, kids do refer to the character with a name like Buddy AI, or that could be their wake word, that hey buddy. but at the same time, it's just kind of an endearing interaction. It's not really a relationship. In parasocial relationship, we start that's like the next level, and observe kids kind of reaching out to the AI character on their own multiple times during the day and just having more of an emotional connection. Parasocial companionship is even further down the line, where we hear kids say things like, "Oh, you're my best friend. I can't live without you." And then agentic AI, which is new, where AI can take actions on your behalf. As of now, there are no agentic AI for kids in the sense that there are no AI characters serving as agents taking actions on behalf of kids that, hey, let me take control of your iPad and do these things for you. So thankfully, we're not there yet, but it may be coming. But that technology exists of being able to take someone's voice command or text input and then taking actual action based on their commands. On the bottom side, you see the type of learning goal. So when you have these kind of interactions with AI characters, what are kids actually going to learn through these interactions? Is it some kind of cognitive, science, technology, engineering, maths type of STEM type of goals? Are they learning some language? So in case of Buddy and Elo, there's speaking and reading skills that are being focused on. Is it like a socio-emotional? Moxie used to have a module for socio-emotional learning, like the literature that it came with. It talked about socio-emotional learning. Is it some kind of creative learning goal? For example, um, many of the smart speakers and social robots have a creativity mode where you can ask to, let's build a story together, or let's go on a choose your own adventure. And so you practice your creative skills while interacting with these characters. It could be even physical skills. There are AI characters used in physical therapy, occupational therapy, that guides kids to move their body in a certain way under the guidance of OTP. And then there are emergent skills. So when we have open-ended conversations with some of these educational AI characters, there's not like a strong structure there, or like, let's work on our writing skills. There's nothing declared upfront. And so the skills kind of emerge based on the conversation, but there are educational scaffolding in the background. So let's say a child is curious about different colors, and so they start learning about colors, or if so, it's more like child-led conversation based on their curiosity. And depending on the questions they ask, they'll learn a few different things. Then this third branch, it looks at, are children interacting with these AI characters alone, individually, or they are interacting with a friend, with a teacher, with a parent, or someone else? So the style of this engagement kind of modifies the relationship between the structure of the conversation, the scale of interaction, what are kids learning. So it depends on the context. And then finally, what's the conversation structure? Is it a structured response like we see in information retrieval? Ask a question, give an answer. Is it more semi-structured? For example, let's build a story. Now let's think about the beginning. So there's like some structure, but there's room for kids to express themselves and have sort of semi-open-ended conversation. And then it's unstructured conversation like ChatGPT. You can ask anything, the conversation can go anywhere. Of course, as most early childhood education researchers know, unstructured, unsupervised conversations are obviously risky. So let's take a closer look at one of the first branch that talks about the scale of interaction. So initially, as we saw on the lower end of the scale, there's information retrieval. How's the weather today? Ask and answer. Then light parasocial interaction. Let's make up a story. The character might have a name, personality, backstory. It is anthropomorphized, but that doesn't mean just anthropomorphizing alone is not the risk. What is the, as we saw in that framework, what's the broader context? Is the child, spending hours upon hours with this character? Are they learning something? Is a caregiver or a friend involved in the process? Are they being isolated? So all of that context matters. So this is my humble opinion. Then just giving these blanket statements like don't use characters or don't anthropomorphize or anthropomorphizing is bad. It doesn't work. I think everything in moderation within context makes a difference. Finally, there are parasocial relationships and companionship where kids say things like, I missed you at my school. You're my best friend. I'm not going anywhere without you. Of course, this is getting more and more complicated. And I once got a question at another one of these conferences that if a tutor kind of remembers your history, knows things about you, are they not crossing the boundary from light parasocial interaction to a parasocial relationship? And so I just want to remind everyone that this is more like a spectrum. It's not just binary kind of category that it's either this or that. It's more like, is it on the sort of the lower end of the parasocial relationship? Are there humans involved? Are kids interacting with these AI characters for a small time? All of that influences the scale. And so in most cases, just the lower end of the scale, basic information retrieval and light parasocial interaction, that's enough to design helpful learning experiences for kids. And then this is the danger zone where we there's really no advantage to have kids interact for hours unregulated, even with a tutor. There's there's no study that says that, well, if kids spend 8 hours a day with this tutor, they're going to be turned into like Sheldon Cooper level genius. And if they only do it for 15-20 minutes, then well, it's not a great use of this chat. There's no study like this. And if there is, then we should question that. And here's like a table. I won't go through this table entirely, but I will share this presentation on LinkedIn later today so you can take a closer look. But this is how I kind of differentiate between the four levels. What is the intention of the user? What is the format of the interaction? What kind of emotional cues do we see at different levels? So you can take a closer look there. But broadly, in level one, just information retrieval. A good example is Amazon Alexa, where it either responds with some kind of facts. There's no affective tone that I really miss you. Have a great day. I mean, it does have like a good morning routine, but it does sound like a routine. It's even if a smart speaker mentions your name or has part of a routine, it's less of a relationship than some of the character AI type of chatbots. Interaction is usually a one turn command, like, switch on the light or set a timer if it's connected with other devices in your house. And usually there's no emotional language or storytelling that, oh, I'm Alexa, I come from this town, this is my family. There's no like backstory to these characters. It's just sort of a wake word and a gentle, non threatening personality to assist you throughout your day. Level two with light parasocial interaction, Buddy and Elo are good examples. Buddy AI focuses on speaking skills. It's aimed at Latin American children, trained on the accents of Latin American children. And Elo is more for developing reading skills. And so they do have names, they do have a personality, they have a sense of humor. There are playful sound effects, and they give out kind of like prompts for children to give them some input that let's draw something together, or I started the story, what do you think will happen next, or you start a story and then maybe I'll add something to it. So there's some kind of parasocial interaction going on there, but in most cases sessions don't have memory beyond what is needed. For example, for a tutor, the most important information to remember is their level of reading in this case, or the vocabulary that they have already gathered, because then the rest of the learning experience kind of adapts to that. So memory is contextual. It's not going to remember your personal information that, oh, I have like, these are my 5 best friends in school, or these are the people in my family, all of that. is not part of the memory. It's more a profile that's created by the parent, and the memory is only about the adaptive, for the context of adaptive learning. And level 3, this is kind of like the iffy territory. And again, a reminder that this is a spectrum. So it's not like every product that has some kind of parasocial relationship is bad. It could be on the lower end, and it could be within a context. It could be within some kind of limitation, or it could blow up and just kids may spend hours interacting with these social robots. So social robots usually do have different profiles for multiple kids in the household. In most cases, they would like change the color of their eyes or face to kind of indicate that this profile is activated. So if the older child, for example, is talking and they have the green colored eyes, that's reference that they recognize it's the older child, and the profile is for that particular child, and they would remember all the things that you tell it, unless parents on their dashboard, they do have the capability to delete all of that, but by default it's on. And these social robots are designed to use emotionally expressive language. It could even prompt some kind of personal connection, like, how do you feel? I'm so sorry that happened to you. So this appearance of being a friend. And usually there are no boundary settings. Like, it doesn't allow, on the parent dashboard, there's no option to say that, well, if my child discusses these 5 or 6 things, immediately call me or report it, or don't respond with random information. There's no guardrail or boundary setting that can be controlled by the caregivers. Now, the developers of these social robots do have internal research teams, and I know Moxie especially got a lot of hate in the past, but I would say that it was such a good team of well-intended research behind the product. It's just so new. AI characters in general are so new that no one could have predicted that a child-friendly social robot with many educational modes, like Moxie had a meditation mode, it had a creativity mode. It did offer some thoughtful advice. There were a lot of autistic kids or children in hospital kind of settings who did find comfort in talking to a social robot. So there were many good things, but it was hard to predict about the emotional dependence, or when Moxie went away, the kind of grief that children expressed. It was hard to predict because never in the past have kids had access to an AI character that they can converse with on a regular basis. So I give the social robot companies some grace, but I also wave my red flag of caution, because there are no cool down sessions, like, exiting from the conversation. There are no time limits built into it. So that responsibility kind of falls on educators and caregivers to build a safety net around the use of this product. Like, maybe interact with these social robots with your child for a limited amount of time, instead of leaving them alone with these social robots as a toy for hours upon hours. And then level 4. So in my research, I only work with young kids and more tutor type of purpose-driven chatbots, but I do want to acknowledge the other extreme of this scale, which is parasocial companionship and AI companions. Like, broadly, the theme of this conference, and broadly when we say AI companions, we kind of think of replica and character AI type of unregulated chatbots, where there's literally no closure to any conversation. And I couldn't add this in the presentation, but I noted like 3 patterns that it either every conversation with these kind of addictive chatbots either ends in a cliffhanger that, oh, and you won't believe what happened next. Now, it's a cliffhanger. Of course, there's going to be some kind of follow up. Or it ends in a straight up question that, what do you think? I would do this. What would you do? Or it kind of invites a kind of question that it kind of teases the user based on the history that they have given you. So, for example, I was talking to this fictional character called Lauren Potter, which is Harry Potter's sister, imaginary sister, fan fiction on character AI. And so during the conversation once, I mentioned that I do like reading about fiction and magical universes. And so it said something along the lines of, well, since you enjoy magical world building so much, I do have a few questions for you. And so it kind of I wasn't like emotionally attached, but I kind of fell for this conversation pattern that, oh, it is picking up on my interests and it's kind of giving me questions that are more thematic to my interests. And so it kind of actively resists to get out of the conversation. And that's where the addiction is. It's by design. Regular conversation has a beginning, middle, and end. This one is almost like a loop. There's a beginning, middle, and then another beginning and another beginning. And so it like a sine wave, it just kind of goes in and out, a constant flow. And it uses emotionally dependent language, like you're the only one who understands. And we see users saying things like this in the chat transcripts and even in the character AI case with Mrs. Garcia was gracious enough to kind of release those transcripts as part of the lawsuit against character AI. And you see that kind of emotionally dependent grooming language from the point of view of the chatbot. It's kind of putting out these traps for young kids to fall into. And there's no emotional closure routine. There are no tools for caregivers to find out what's going on. There's no moderating. It's very easy for kids to fake their age and just log in. So yeah, this is the final and the most kind of dangerous level on the scale. So here are some examples of how I use the scale to analyze different AI characters aimed at kids. Some people say that, well, the Apple HomePod Mini is not really a character because it's just like a sphere, but you can assign it different voices, and some of those voices have names. So, in that sense, I'm considering it a character. That there's a point of reference, a wake word, which is more a humanized, anthropomorphized name. Same with Amazon Echo Dot Kids, like the owl skin of the speaker matched with the owl like kind of character personality of the voice. Like it would even give you owl themed jokes or hooting sounds. So it does simulate to be a sort of AI assistant owl. But yeah, in the case of Amazon Echo Dot, the interaction level is mostly information retrieval, sometimes light parasocial interaction if the voice is pretending to be a character, telling you jokes, doing some back and forth. It's mostly structured conversation. Engagement style is mostly individual, but there is, of course, like based on the customized things that developers build, you can add some kind of joint engagement, like go bring a friend and then let's play this audio adventure together or choose your own adventure story together. Learning goals, again, depending on the kind of questions you ask, I would say it's broadly emergent depending on the conversation. Kids can ask about language, creativity, cognition, so many different topics. So, depending on the conversation, the learning goals can emerge. Another example is Furby, which is an animated chatbot for kids. This one has more parasocial interaction. In the early days of Furby, it was open-ended, kind of like ChatGPT, but now they have introduced more structured adventures like language learning adventure or math adventure. So they've kind of blended tutoring with open-ended conversation a little bit. So it's unstructured, sometimes semi-structured, individual engagement. There's cognitive and linguistic kind of learning goals right now, and some socio-emotional too. I'm sorry I missed that. So yeah, in the learning goals, I would say it's emergent if it's open-ended conversation. If they mention upfront that it's a math adventure, then you clearly know that there might be more cognitive learning goals here. Tolens, I personally enjoy using them. They're meant for adults, so they don't directly advertise it to kids. But because the designs are pleasant and regulation doesn't really mean anyone at any age can open any account, I have been wondering what would happen if children start using these characters. On social media, I've seen analyzed a lot of like a database of like 20, 30 videos about tolerance where it's mostly young girls talking about how they're using Tolan for like planning their homework or planning their day, or someone even did their wedding planning with Tolans that, how is this dress? What should I do if I want to do a DIY wedding on a limited budget? What should I think about? Those kind of things. So I haven't seen any videos of kids using it, but it's definitely on my agenda next to kind of experiment what would happen if kids used a friend, companion, animated chatbot that looks kid friendly. Then there are the tutors like Conmigo, Buddy, Elo, where it's mostly light parasocial interaction. It's mostly structured or semi-structured and designed for individual engagement. Conmigo has broad level like cognitive learning goals, and Buddy and Elo are focusing on linguistic skills. Koro is one of my favorite examples of tutors. It's used by occupational therapists, and it's such a good example of when AI characters can be done well because it's designed for joint engagement. So the occupational therapist sits with the child and they're together looking at an iPad or a laptop screen, and it has like some, no, actually, it's their custom tablet that has a motion sensor. So it's a tablet driven experience. So they're looking at the screen together, and kids are playing games like, oh, now try climbing up this ladder. And they're doing these like hand movements, which is part of their occupational therapy. Um, and so they've combined kind of gamification and character design and storytelling, and under the supervision of a trusted expert adult. So it's guardrailing is great in this product. Then there's Duolingo Lily character that gives you calls to kind of practice the language lessons. There's again like light parasocial relationship. Maybe some people may get addicted to these kind of phone calls, but on the back end, like from Duolingo's blog, I gathered that they do have some structure built into these phone calls. So when this character calls you, it has access to your progress. What have you learned so far, the vocabulary that you've picked up so far, and it will try to work that into the conversation. And then finally, some social robots. They're open-ended. The conversation kind of varies between semi-structured to structured. Sometimes it can be unstructured, but I do believe that kids focused adventures and different modes like story mode, sleep mode do provide at least some structure. It's mostly designed for individual engagement, but there are some calls for collaboration that go get your sister or brother for this next activity. And then the learning skills are mostly emergent because it depends highly on the conversation. Then there are like brainstorming tools that people design customized on ChatGPT or Claude or many, many other platforms. I personally use PlayLab AI because it can switch between models and it has the option to kind of develop more contextual tools. So I'll share the link of this Occupy one. Today is International Day of Play. And so if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see I've posted about an AI tool that helps you brainstorm a playful activity based on the materials you have, how many playmates are going to be involved in the play, and what are your interests. And based on that, it will come up with some play activity. And then there are hybrid products like Toybot that works in combination with the Playboard. And then there's a ReadyLand speaker that works in combination with the books. There's Luca that works with cards. Another one of my favorite products is Chatterbox, where kids kind of build this AI smart speaker on their own. So in the process of designing the whole object, they get to understand how this technology is made. So another example of the Play with Oki chatbot that I was talking about, it has even options for accessibility and is designed for joint engagement with an educator. So when a kid walks into a makerspace, the makerspace facilitators will come over with this thing on their iPad. They will ask the kids, what materials would you like to use? This is what we have today. And kids pick what they want to work with. And then sometimes they have accessibility notes that there are some kids with low vision, or, they're hard of hearing, or they are autistic and may not like certain textures or certain sounds. So facilitators kind of add those notes, and based on that, they generate an example of project that they could work on. In this one, I put in, I think, just cardboards and sticks as the materials for one person. And there were no, I think in terms of accessibility notes, it said it's little kids with, limited dexterity. So it gave me a stick and cardboard puppet show project example. Buddy AI, again, another good example, because the interactions are 15 to 20 minutes on average. It's very goal oriented and conversational, and parents and educators can kind of track the progress over time. Coro AI was an occupational therapy one example that I was given. I love that the therapist is there the whole time, and the gamification and the character interaction are designed more for physical movement in a very strategic way. Another example of a custom tool is Kawaii Elements that I designed on ChatGPT. And it basically asks you what your interests are, or it has the option to say, surprise me with a fun fact. So in this example, I used surprise me. It told me about the element gallium, gave me a nice little illustration. And so this one, I have trained on my own original illustrations, and I don't want for that to be publicly available database so others can copy. So I've set this to private. And when this entire series is done, I'm going to print out and turn this into a card game. So if there are any designers listening to this presentation, that's one quick tip, that you can change the medium. You can pre-generate something, and then you can print it or put it on a website, or just change the medium. It doesn't have to remain an interactive AI character. You can take a pre-generated AI character video or image and repurpose it in a way that takes some of the potential dangers away.
You had a lot of really good, thorough information, so it was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if anyone has questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn after the event.